So this is it. We're finally here. We're finally at the end of Star versus the Forces of Evil. And I just gotta say, once again, thank you guys for getting me to watch this show. I probably never would have actually sat down to watch the whole thing all the way through if it hadn't been for you guys telling me how great a show it is. And while I definitely have my problems with it, while I definitely think there are aspects of the show that could have been done significantly better in some cases, I really do feel like my life would be diminished without having ever actually seen it. Which, you know, incidentally, if there's another show currently running that you guys think could fill the void in my heart that this one has left, considering that Steven Universe isn't going to be back until the end of the frickin' year, I'd love for you to tell me in the comment section down below, because I'm a depressed bitch and I need constant distractions from my real life. And now that we've gotten the raw vulnerability out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about the finale itself, in which we were led to believe by the stinger at the end of the last episode that Star is going to go into the magic dimension and use the whispering spell to recreate what Toffee had done to magic and then destroy the magic dimension completely, theoretically destroying magic completely forever. What's interesting about the direction that they chose to take this episode is that Star and Marco go together into the magic dimension, and Star uses the whispering spell to recreate what Toffee had done and then destroy the magic dimension, and theoretically destroying magic completely forever. Like, there's a little more to it than that, but this episode didn't really do anything to subvert expectations. And I gotta say, after another medieval style fantasy show and the way that it ended recently, I am glad that this show didn't try too hard to subvert expectations out of nowhere. Sometimes it's nice at the end of a story to see the hero's plan go right. And yes, at the end of the show, seemingly at least, at the very least, Earth and Muni are merged together into a new dimension. And I say seemingly and at the very least for reasons that I will get into later in this review. So there was that. It's not as if Star and Marco actually have to live separate from each other for the rest of their lives, like the ending of the previous episode suggested that they would. But that really is what Star does, or what Star intends to do, at the very least. I don't think that's necessarily what she did, and again, I'll talk about that in a minute. But there really isn't any shake-up there. Like, Tom turns out to be in the magic dimension waiting for them. The Firstborn didn't send him back to Muni for some reason. Also, the Firstborn's just straight up dead. Except she's not really, because her skull can talk to us. What? And Moon and Eclipsa do show up to help at the end, as Star herself is not powerful enough to completely destroy the thing from which she draws her power. Imagine that. But really, this episode is what you expect it to be and little more. And I will admit, on one hand, that's kind of disappointing. And I do have a lot of problems with the way that they left this. I have so many questions left over that I'm almost certainly going to be dropping a top 10 unanswered questions in Star vs. the Forces of Evil video this week as my Thursday video. But I don't think this episode sucked. Some people were saying that this episode sucked, that it was pointless and ruined the entire show. I disagree with that, as I do think that this is where they were setting up things to go. They just didn't do a very good job of setting this up in such a way that once it happened, it felt like the proper payoff to what was having been set up. To sort of get my point across, let's take a moment to remember all of the characters who didn't survive this war. Yeah, that's right. Every frickin' magical creature in the show is just dead. Unless the theory that what happened is that all of the dimensions merged together, including the magic dimension and the spell dimension, and that all of the mill horses and all the spells just sort of exist alongside everybody else now. Unless that's true, all the magical creatures are just straight up dead. And either way, the High Commission and Glossaric are almost definitely either dead or exist in a completely different form now. So in short, if things are how they appear on the tin, Star did commit genocide in order to keep Mina from committing genocide. And that's just something that I can't justify. Like, yeah, this plan does end up stopping Mina, who does just walk off at the end, unpunished, with the implication being that roughly half of her fellow warriors are still bigoted. But was it worth the cost, really? And, like, they try to make us okay with this. They try to gloss over it by having, appropriate enough, Glossaric and Hekapu be okay with it, which I think is actually evidence for the idea that these guys are all still alive in one form or another, as Glossaric does not seem like the wants-to-die type to me at all. And he would definitely know if this is going to kill him. He can see everything. He's omniscient. But I digress. That is not enough. There are tons of magical characters in this show who we didn't see being okay with this. Like, I totally expected Star to create a new kind of magic, not a new place made from multiple dimensions. I honestly think that would have been a better outcome, all things considered. But that's not what they went with. Like, think about it. Even if it is just Echo Creek at the minimum, which has merged with Muni, and it definitely doesn't seem like that's the case to me. All of the people of Echo Creek are now trapped in Muni with no way to get back now that magic and portals don't exist. Their government has been decimated. They're now going to have to live by the laws of a society that they don't understand, a society which is rebuilding itself. That's going to create conflicts in and of itself. But if it was all dimensions that merged together, or even just Earth and Muni that merged together, you have an even bigger problem. The United States government, at the very least, isn't going to just accept whatever decisions the humans make for whatever new structure their government's going to take now that the lineage of queens is effectively broken. There's going to be renewed hostility towards monsters now that the dimensions have merged. And do you honestly think that the monsters and the humans are going to want to live based on human laws when the humans have been making the laws for so long and the monsters have gone without making the laws for so long? Do you honestly think either one of those groups is going to want that power snatched away from them? This was just messy. At the end of the day, the resolution of this show was messy. It was, rather than a resettling of the status quo, a huge, huge shakeup to it. This felt more like a season ender, which was supposed to establish a new status quo for the next season, than it did a series finale. And that's what has gotten me wondering if perhaps, maybe, this isn't just setting up for a sequel show, or a sequel comic, or a spin-off show. Like, I could definitely see this being a jumping off point for a completely different story with different characters down the line, a la Legend of Korra to Avatar The Last Airbender. And if that ends up being the case, then great, because I am certainly intrigued by what happened there at the end. But if none of this is ever explained further, I am probably going to be pissed off. I'm just going to come out and say it. The more I think about this, the more annoyed I am. So if it's never explained, I imagine that's just going to keep getting worse, because I never stop thinking about a thing once it gets nestled up in there. Still, getting to see that Star and Marco are going to make things work, I guess, in this new world is good. I enjoyed that. And I did enjoy the episode overall. Like some people are saying that it was kind of an anticlimax, that it didn't really do anything, that nothing really happened. But with all the setup we got leading up to this episode, that's when things were going to happen. This was obviously never supposed to be all that surprising an episode. All the surprises were obviously supposed to come in the episodes leading up to this. And I'm fine with that. And at the end of the day, I enjoyed the experience of watching this episode. I will, however, say that while I don't think that it sucked, and while I don't think that it was a waste of time, I do think it could have been a lot better. Like, even thematically speaking, not just in terms of what actually happened and what questions weren't answered, but like, thematically speaking, I think this could have been a lot better. Like, so much of the series was focused on the point that magic is not a bad thing unless you make it one, and here at the end, the solution is just to destroy it because magic equals bad. That's so stupid. Going back on such a prevailing theme of your show, I think is harmful to the show in retrospect. And I did also say this in a previous video, I can't remember which one it was, but destroying magic, while it did logically follow from what was going on in the show at the time that Star made that choice, does kind of drain the magic from the show, both literally and figuratively in hindsight, at least for me. There's also the issue of Star's tapestry. Supposedly the tapestry is always right, and you can't change it, and in the end, Star and Marco were not going to be together because that's what the tapestry showed. And my thought was that Star would make a different choice than just straight up destroying magic, and that that's what would keep them together. But in the end, the merging of the dimensions is just kind of a thing that happens. Like, yeah, it kind of seems like the two of them running at each other at the end facilitates it somehow, but Star still didn't make any choices that she didn't expect to make leading up to that. It's not as if she somehow programmed the merging of dimensions into the whispering spell when she said it or something. She still expected magic to be destroyed. She made all the same choices that led to the future that was foreseen in that tapestry. So why didn't the tapestry come true? There's also the issue that magical things still seem to be happening there at the end. Like, they don't come right out and say it, but I can't think of any reason why Globgor wouldn't be able to change his form. Still, like, change his size. Still, when characters like Ponyhead can still float around, when there isn't any conceivable biological function that would let somebody float around like that, that's gotta be magic of some kind. And then there's, like, the giant spider that we see at the end, for example, that would be crushed under the square cube law if not for some magical force keeping it from crushing itself under its own weight. And those are just, like, the minimalist examples that I can give of what I noticed at the end of this episode still suggests that magic does still exist. So what exactly did Star do? Like, that's the biggest question. What exactly did Star do? Because if she didn't destroy magic, then the episode didn't do anything to indicate to us what she did that we don't have to guess at without any evidence. Obviously, I have mixed feelings about this episode, but again, I want to reiterate, I still enjoyed watching this episode. I still, overall, enjoyed the episode. That is what I want you guys to come away with this review understanding. That while I had problems with this episode, while it left me questioning things that I don't think it should have, I still enjoyed watching it. Though, I understand why some people didn't. I understand why some people hated this. So, as per usual, guys, I'd like to know, what did you think of Cleaved, the final episode of Star vs. the Forces of Evil? If you have seen it, let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below. Specifically, I'd like to know whether or not you think this episode was good. I'm expecting a roughly even split between people who did and people who didn't, based on what I've seen otherwise. Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord, link in the description. And once again, if you guys know of another show, specifically one that is currently airing, that you think would kind of fill the void that Star has left in my life, also let me know. But either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.